Hi, my name is Sanjanan, and this is going to be a video for my Capstone 2 class for the Organizational Leadership Program at Texas A&M University, Commerce. I'm going to be talking about my leadership journey and how it began. So I'm going to be answering a few questions like, who did I think I was as a leader before the program? And then I'm going to elaborate on some of the classes and my experience with them, followed by who do I think I am as a leader today, and then where do I go from here? So in the beginning, I would say I wasn't much of a leader. I did have a lot of experience, but not in leadership roles. I worked at a lot of different jobs, a lot of food service and retail, until I finished school for respiratory therapy and I became a respiratory therapist. And that's kind of where I would say my leadership journey started, beginning, especially when I became a clinical instructor. Because becoming a clinical instructor, you have a bunch of students, and those students look up to you, especially since they're seeing how the job is and what do they need to know, especially the experience as a respiratory therapist. Um, I would say it was really important to try to figure out how to motivate those students to, one, stay in class, but at the same time, just focus on their studies and pay attention in clinicals and just open their eyes, absorb everything. So before, I would say, yeah, I wasn't too much of a leader. I was kind of like an educator, but I would say, yeah, teachers are leaders as well. So it was really good knowing that this program was going to help me grow as a respiratory therapist in leadership roles, as well as a clinical instructor, preceptor. So the classes, starting with Foundations of Organizational Leadership, I would say I was really surprised about that class. I didn't know too much going into it, so when I was learning about how it was studied for so long, like ancient civilizations were studying about leadership, that kind of surprised me. And it kind of gave me another perspective of things. So it was good to know that, um, this isn't something that was new, and there's a lot of people who have already been studying it. Um, it was it was a class that introduced you to key traits and behaviors um, typically associated with leadership. And I think that was really important because that was a good introduction to kind of get you to think about your experiences and the leaders that you've seen through your experience as employees. So throughout my different jobs, I noticed there were definitely some leaders that I would follow and some leaders that I wouldn't follow, typically my managers. So the ones who got me to do things and got me to motivate myself, I think those were the better leaders compared to the ones who was kind of more, I would say, transactional um, leaders or managers. So it was a good eye opener, and it was a good way to connect with my experiences. Then going off to the data driven decision making class, that I really liked that class actually, because being a clinician and part of the healthcare system, um, you learn that data is really, really important, because literally everything that we do is data driven. It's driven by research. So you can't have research without data. You can't treat people with medicine and treatments that are not tested, and all of that requires data. So I kind of really liked that class, and it reminded me of how people were kind of on the fence with taking COVID vaccines in the past, in previous years. And it was funny because the data driven decision making class, uh, it told me that, yeah, the COVID vaccines, they're data driven also. Uh, I didn't want to make this about politics or anything, so I'm just going to talk about the research that was done for it. So my wife was pregnant at the time, and we were reluctant at first um, about taking the vaccine. And after looking up at how much data and research that was done prior to them handing out the vaccines, we decided to take it because the data showed that it was going to be safer for her to take the vaccine, because if she got sick um, with COVID, it would be more dangerous to her as well as the baby um, that was being born. So it was it helped us make a decision on what to do. So yeah, I really like that class. And going to the third class, the organizational ethics and organizational behavior. This class really surprised me. Usually, I don't really like to go into ethics too much. I feel like I'm a pretty ethical person, but at the same time, learning about this class and the lessons in it, it kind of surprised me because, well, the four Pinto class, or the four Pinto case, got to me because we're also looking at a car, being a new father and everything. I was kind of looking at my experience of looking for cars, and safety is one of the key things that you're looking into a car, as well as the efficiency, gas mileage. But yeah, the Ford Pinto case really opened my eyes about how ethics is so important in just decision making, and just the organization as a whole, how it looks on them and how it can impact them on making the proper ethical decisions. It's not something to be looked at lightly, and especially since being in the healthcare field, our whole image is really based on ethics. You don't want to go to a doctor or a healthcare facility if you don't think that place is ethical, if they're not gonna do the right thing. You want them to be doing things in your best interest. You want to feel safe. You want to trust them. So I feel like that class was a good eye opener as well. And then going to leadership theory. So I became a charge therapist recently at I wouldn't say the hospital name, but at a children's hospital. And so I have to be in charge of a couple of therapists during the shift, about 5 to 8 therapists, and they all have different personalities. And so when I started this class, it was good going into it, as I was learning to be a charge therapist as well, because it was teaching me, hey, there are different situations and there are different ways to motivate people based on the different situations. There are different leadership styles, and there's different ways to say something, to teach something, to show them something, because a lot of people have different motivations. And you're not quite sure what that is until you start to try and try and try, because sometimes you try to show them something or tell them something, and they either forget, or the concept didn't get across to them, or they're not motivated for whatever reason. So that class really was great because I was learning kind of on the job training, as well as gaining knowledge on how to choose the right leadership style for that situation. And then so the fifth class, leading change. This class kind of gave me a flashback at when Epic started taking over healthcare systems, or healthcare charting systems, because I really love Epic, and it really revolutionized the way the healthcare industry is working now. It wasn't just about charting, but all the information, all the accessibility and the flexibility of it, being able to transfer data and receive data from other hospitals or facilities. It was really important, because then we'll know ahead of time of what their history is and how to treat them, as well as the charting, because we used to have paper charting, and as RTs we have a lot of charting. So when you're writing on paper, and there's a lot of data, some of it could get lost because it's just on paper. It's so much better having it on electronics, because then you can go back to it, you can search for it, and find things much faster and quicker. And so when I started taking this class, that flashback of my experience with the Epic system taking over, because I had to deal with the change, and a lot of employees didn't like that we were changing to electronic system at first, because a lot of therapists were older than me, and they weren't used to computers. They kind of really rejected it. There was a lot of resistance to the electronic charting system. And since I'm on I would say the younger end of things, but at the same time, I have a lot of experience. So I was kind of acting as a bridge between the leadership, and as well as our staff therapists, and just understanding that, just being able to get the people who were resisting the change to understand why we were changing and the benefits of it, was really important. And guess what? Now they all love it. So it was a great flashback to that memory. And then going to the question, so who do I think I am as a leader now? I think I'm a much better leader, definitely with more experience, and going through these classes. It helped me just learn about different leadership styles and which one works for me and which one that I'm going to use, because I think I'm more of a, I would say, lead by example. I like to lead by example because I like to show them that I wouldn't ask anyone to do something that they are not comfortable doing. So if I can show them that I can do it, then they can totally do it. And I wasn't in a position much further than them. So where do I go from here? Hopefully I finish this class, everything goes well, and I'll start applying to some more leadership roles. I'm going to take what I learned and with my experiences with me. And thank you for watching.